You have this sketch from Arkansas, which we now believe is Mr. McGahn, and then you got the sketch from Vermont. What do you take away? Do they look similar to you? Do they look different? And how reliable are sketches?
Well, all I can tell you is right off the bat, bottom line for me, the sketches depict different individuals. Bottom line for me, that's the way I see it. But more importantly,
why do you think that?
The obvious things that come across right off the bat for me are the nose and the eyes right off the bat. They appear to be different ages. So whoever the eyewitness was and how they were described them in different terms. And what I was going to get to is, instead of looking at the images themselves, what I want to do is I want to find out three other things. I want to know whether the assessment of their recollection, whether the eyewitness was asked, if you saw this person again, would you recognize them? That's really important before you start the interview, because we want to know whether they're going to be able to identify them later in a photo lineup or not. Secondly, you want to know whether reference images were used and whether they were used to contaminate or to stimulate memory, because it can be used to contaminate memory later. And third, I'd want to know whether the interview was actually recorded, because when it's recorded, the agency themselves can actually take a look at the interview themselves and figure out whether they can rely on that information more reliably.
Those are all great points, and it actually makes me wonder about something. Is it possible you could have two people, okay? They see the same person, and yet their recollection of that person, their description of that person, the renderings of that person could look completely different. So again, for argument's sake, let's say you had two people who looked at the suspect, Mr. McGahn, and you have what appear to be two completely different sketches. Is that possible? Have you seen that happen before?
That's definitely a possibility. I've been in many serial cases where I've interviewed multiple witnesses at different times and have seen the suspect at different times, day or night, from different vantage points. But what the through line on those sketches are, they appear to be very similar in features. So what I mean by that is, overall, there seems to be this archetype that's running through both sketches, regardless of the accessories being used here, right? We've got a baseball cap versus no baseball cap versus different hairstyles. But the face itself, there's something about that when people see them that is going to tie them together. And most of the time when you're working with multiple eyewitnesses, they can make those determinations, especially if they got a good look at them. That's why it's important to ask, if you saw them again, would you recognize them? That confidence alone will help you to move forward with that interview.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating piece of the investigation. Jon, so we were talking before about how Vermont authorities right now are ruling out a connection. Do you think that's premature? I mean, there are certain similarities here that can't be ignored. Is it a little too fast to say there's no connection, or is that standard to say it at this point?
Well, hard to know what they have, of course. Maybe they have something, and obviously they do, that we don't know about. But I don't know if I would box myself into just saying it couldn't be related unless I had something that was concrete on that. Again, they might be carrying it pretty close to the vest. I don't think that's standard procedure that I would automatically say, oh, no, it can't be. I'd be looking into it, and I'd just leave it open.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.